This program airs statewide on California Public Television and is a California's Gold classic. This series is endorsed by the California Teachers Association, the California School Boards Association, and the California Library Association. Hello everybody, I'm Huell Hauser, and here we are on a beautiful San Francisco morning heading out across San Francisco Bay. Our destination is probably one of the most famous not only in our state, but in the entire world. I'm talking, of course, about Alcatraz. There it is over there in the distance. The fog is just beginning to lift. Now, everybody knows about Alcatraz, but as usual, this journey is going to be just a little bit different because we're going to be spending a day taking a look at a side of Alcatraz very few people have ever seen or even know about. We're going to take a look at underground Alcatraz, the hidden Alcatraz. And if you're curious exactly where we're going to go and what we're going to find, as always, you're invited to come on along with us as we continue our search together on Alcatraz for California's gold.
For some time, I have desired to obtain a place of confinement to which could be sent our more dangerous and intractable criminals. By negotiation with the War Department, we have obtained the use of Alcatraz Prison, located on a precipitous island in San Francisco Bay, more than a mile from the shore. The current is swift and escapes are practically impossible.
And here's America's Devil's Island. Grim and inaccessible, Alcatraz offers no hope of a break to freedom by desperate criminals of the Bailey, Bates, and Kelly types. In this cell block, 600 prisoners can be confined, and so remote is the possibility of a jail delivery that only a small force of armed guards need be kept on the island. Machine Gun Kelly, just sentenced to life imprisonment, will be among the first tenants. On that rocky isle, no underworld friends can aid him, and his boasts will go unheard. Alcatraz is ready.
For years, the myths and legends of Alcatraz have definitely captured our imagination. Each year, millions of people from all over the world make the pilgrimage across San Francisco Bay to visit this infamous rock. This place we've seen in so many movies and made famous by such tenants as shoot-'em-up gangsters Al Capone and Machine Gun Kelly. As we approached the island and pulled up beside the dock, it was like I was in an old movie. Nothing seems to have changed. But of course it has, because it's no longer a prison. It's now part of the Golden Gate National Recreation Area. Still, I felt kind of a quiet excitement about just being there, and a real sense of anticipation about what I was going to see. Right away, I met up with John Martini, who's with the National Park Service, and we set off on a tour that took us to some amazing hidden places. Well, John, here we are in the U.S. Penitentiary Alcatraz. This is probably the most famous cell block in the country, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, this is Broadway. This is what 1,200,000 people a year come to see.
Okay, and they come here to see who was over here? Al Capone, the Birdman of Alcatraz, and
Machine Gun Kelly, Mickey Cohen.
Assorted American characters of questionable repute.
Yeah, they called them the worst of the worst.
The worst of the worst, and here we are where they called home. Now, this, though, was made a U.S. federal penitentiary in what year?
1934.
1934, so that was really rather recent.
In fact, the penitentiary only operated for 29 years. There was a lot of history before the penitentiary.
And that's what we're here to find, and that's why you've got the lantern right here, because John is an expert in the history of Alcatraz before the history that all of us here today kind of know about. It's kind of a hidden history, isn't it, John?
It's almost an unknown history. It's an underground history.
Ah, see, he's using all the right words. You know we like to go underground.
We're going there now.
So we're going to leave the cell block and go outside. All these tourists have got their earphones on. They're listening to the self-guided tours.
Yeah, the oral history tape tour.
But we're not getting a tape tour. We're getting a personal tour from John. John, who lived on this island before it was a prison?
It was an army fort and an army prison, and it was a lighthouse station. In fact, its first use was as a lighthouse, first lighthouse on the West Coast.
The first lighthouse on the West Coast was on Alcatraz?
It's that right here, where we're standing. It was a little two-bedroom Cape Cod-style cottage with a tower sticking up the middle. 3 families lived in it somehow.
This tower?
No, this tower dates only from 1909. The original Alcatraz light, built in 1854, it was shorter than the prison building. And when the prison was under construction in 1909, they realized it was going to block the lighthouse beam. So the Coast Guard, or in those days was called the Lighthouse Board, they built this tower to replace the old original light.
Now I'm getting confused because you're talking about building a prison in 1909. I thought you said this was a prison in 1934.
It was, but the Army built it, and for 25 years the Army used the same building as what they called a disciplinary barracks for housing U.S. Army soldiers.
Okay, so it was a prison, an Army prison, before it was a federal prison.
Right, and it was frequently referred to for a while as Fort Alcatraz. There's other famous Army prison at Fort Leavenworth in Kansas. This was the West Coast counterpart. And as I said, for a quarter of a century, U.S. Army soldiers were locked up here. And it was just fortuitous that right when the Army decided as a cost-cutting measure to close the disciplinary barracks, the U.S. Bureau of Prisons was looking for a place to set up a maximum security federal penitentiary. A few tens of $1,000s worth of remodeling work and a change of inmate population, and it became U.S. Penitentiary Alcatraz.
So they just switched it from one prison to another.
Exactly.
But isn't there another, doesn't the history go way back? Much further than we're talking about right now.
It goes back to the gold rush.
Okay, now where did all that happen? What was out here during the gold rush? Where would we go to find any of that?
We have to go a level lower. Just like you go to many European cities where one city was built on top of another, Alcatraz was the same way. It's like a layer cake. And the lowest level, actually below the buildings where we are now, are the remains of the old fortifications, old barracks buildings.
It's like doing archaeological work we're going to do today.
Quite literally.
So we're on the top layer now.
We're on the top layer.
And boy, I mean to tell you, this gives you a real sense of what it was like out here, because we just came from San Francisco and you can't even see the city now. We're totally fogged in out here.
Now, it's really like its own little world. Any island is self-contained. This one, when the fog's in, you could be on another planet.
Yeah. All right, let's head out, or head down.
Head down.
Where are we going, this way?
Really, we need to go into the prison and through the old abandoned A block and then downstairs.
Oh boy, this is a real adventure.
Okay.
I couldn't resist going in here just to see what it would feel like. And what did you tell me, John?
Don't close the door, it'll lock.
We almost closed the door. I was doing it for effect.
Oh no, it would have been real.
But it would have been real, and we do not want to stay here in one of those cells.
Right.
Now, where are we going?
We are going down here. This leads to the basement of the prison, what the penitentiary people called the remains of the old citadel.
Oh my gosh, the old citadel.
Mm-hmm.
Shouldn't you be getting this lantern lighted up? It's dark down here. There we go. Oh my gosh. Oh, now where in the world, what was this?
We're actually standing in a moat, a dry moat that surrounded the big 3-story building that dominated the top of Alcatraz. The building was called the Citadel. To the left, this is the outside wall of the barracks building.
This was the outside wall right here.
And you're looking at a rifle slit window. And where we are standing is actually a dry moat. If you can imagine, above us, take the prison away that was built later, This building rose 3 stories all by itself, straight up.
Now, wait a minute. This was the prison that was built here?
No. This building right here was constructed in 1854, 1855.
1854?
Yeah. And it was the main barracks building, hospital, administration. This was the heart of how the fort on Alcatraz ran. And in case of an attack on the island, this building, called the Citadel, would have been the place where all the soldiers could retreat and hole up and withstand a 3 or 4 month long siege.
Watch your head here, Louis, because it gets pretty low. This is amazing. And when they built the prison, they just put it right over the old fort. So this wall is almost 150 years old.
Closing in on it. Yeah. These walls are so thick, in some places 4 or 5 feet thick at the angles. And the exterior wall, the moat over there, even thicker.
So wait a minute, this wall is that old as well?
Yes.
And this was a dry moat in between?
Dry moat.
Oh my God.
Now,
did prisoners in the federal penitentiary days from the 30s, 1930s, ever come down in here?
Some of the rooms down here were used as solitary confinement cells for about 6 years. And then they closed down this area when they opened a new block in the prison upstairs.
So when this was built in the 1850s, soldiers would have been inside here and their rifles would have been pointing out.
That's right.
This way.
Anyone who managed to get into this moat, well, it was dry, no crocodiles, but anyone that got into this moat would be shot at by the defenders inside the building.
And how far does this... Oh gosh, now we've reached a dead end.
No, it keeps going.
It goes around?
It goes around. So duck your head and come under this way. Huell, let me take you over to some of the rooms that were used in the later days as, they called them dungeons.
These floors are all original from the 1850s.
That's right.
My God. Now wait a minute, what would this have been right here?
Well, you can see that this room originally had a front wall that enclosed it that somebody knocked down. These were little storerooms. They would have kept supplies of food, maybe backup ammunition stored here. And these convenient underground storage rooms were later adapted into solitary confinement cells, or dungeons in the parlance.
Dungeons. You
Dungeons.
never think of California having dungeons. It sounds like something out of the medieval days.
Yeah, you read the old records, and that was the term they used. And sometimes you look at these walls, you can see there's graffiti carved into the brick from people that were incarcerated here.
Back in...
Oh, some of the dates go back as, we found them as far back as the 1890s.
Now see, I'm very tempted.
Don't take a piece of the rock.
Everybody wants to take a piece of the rock, don't they?
Can't take a piece of the rock.
Heck. And it's historic, too. These old bricks, look at this. Oh, my gosh.
More graffiti done by we don't know who.
Oh, my gosh. John, back here.
What'd you find?
Well, it's just this whole big, it just goes from one to another. And this is all original metal up here too. Look at it. It's falling up. It's just crumbling.
Yeah.
Is this safe down here? You don't
well,
give
as long
tours.
as you're with me.
You don't give tours down here just for that reason.
Just for that reason. We're right now looking at doing a major structural overhaul of the prison that will save it for the next several centuries, and also it will save this area down here.
Boy, because this is just, you know, crumbling.
This is the result of old steel and seawater percolating through the concrete. And we found something very interesting is that as this steel rusts and expands, the cell house actually is slightly rising. It's called rust jacking, and the whole building's going upwards. And if you look closely, you'll hear some of the old brick, recycled brick from the demolished citadel that was used
when they
to
built
build
the
new
new
ones. That's right.
I bet there's stuff back here that if you turned me loose in here for a day, I bet I'd find stuff that you didn't even know was here.
We're always finding little things, bullets, uniform insignia, from the days when it was a penitentiary, convict knives.
Okay, here we are back. This is where we started.
Going up the same stairs.
Now this whole place we've just been is right under the cell block, but the prisoners here in the 30s and 40s never knew what was down there, did they? They were all up here.
They were all up here, except for a very few that might have been locked up down there briefly in the dungeons, and just enough was known that it gave rise to all sorts of myths and stories of Spanish dungeons and mysterious tunnels leading to the sea.
Ah, so wait a minute. So these guys up here in the 30s and 40s probably thought if they went down there, they could escape this place.
That's right. Part of that myth was reinforced by the fact that the old plumbing system, it echoed with the sound of the waves crashing during high surf, and you could actually hear the sound of the surf, tantalizingly close. And there were several guys that were caught trying to dig their way through the back of their cells or through one of the underground utility chases.
Down into there.
You got it.
Wow. Well, there was no escape from Alcatraz, though, right?
So they say.
Now we're getting back. Well, we were here earlier in the tour, but you brought me back here because this is right here, isn't it, where the famous picture was made of all the cannonball stacked up?
This is what the area they called the ordnance yard, and this is where tens of thousands of cannonballs and even unmounted cannon were stored in case of need during a siege.
Now those pictures were made when?
In 1868, San Francisco photographer was allowed to come out to the island, and he shot pictures of all the state-of-the-art equipment on what even in the 1860s was a secret island in the middle of San Francisco Bay.
So this has always been kind of a forbidden place.
The first time the public was ever allowed out here to see it as visitors was 1973. Up until that time, you either had to be a soldier, a lighthouse keeper, a prisoner, or a carefully screened guest to get onto this little island.
Well, they might not have had many people out here before 1973, but they're sure making up for lost time now, aren't they?
Totally.
How many a year?
About 1.2 million.
A year.
A year.
And how many? It started off with a lighthouse, which was just a keeper probably, and one or maybe 5 people.
About 5
in 1854.
people. Right.
How many soldiers were here when it was a fort?
Oh, maybe about 400, 500
Yeah.
at the height. And it was a pretty small population. It was even smaller when it was a penitentiary in later years.
So there are more people on the island right this moment as tourists than were ever out here
as prisoners?
As prisoners, as soldiers, as anything.
That's fair to say. There's probably about 3,000-4,000 people on the island today.
Now, because we're hooked up with John, who's with the Park Service, we're going to get to go down kind of a neat staircase that is not... Okay, here we go. You sure this is safe?
Yeah, just don't put all your weight on the handrail.
Now, why are we going down here?
Well, we're headed down to the very point of the island where all the cannon were arranged that commanded the channel leading to San Francisco.
Boy, when you get down here, you really get a sense of what they mean when they say the rock. This really is just a big old rock.
Big old hunk of sandstone, actually.
That's not good for anything.
Not unless you're a mother seagull looking for a nest.
Howdy.
There used to be a very gentle slope that led from where those folks are all the way down to the point of the island. And right after the Civil War, they put Army prisoners to work cutting this whole area down to create this big flat area because they wanted a parade ground.
So this would have been the parade ground for the troops out here.
That's right.
You know, I get mixed up. There's so many layers of history here. This is not old.
No, this is actually remains of the newest buildings on the island. These were apartment houses for the penitentiary guards. They were built at about 1940.
See, you can't really tell because they're falling down. Oh my gosh. This is surreal looking at this. Are y'all just going to leave this like this?
We're letting it revegetate. You can see that the grasses and the brush are taking it over, and eventually it'll look like a natural hill, but it's composed of unnatural material.
And now we're going back in time again to 1855, because this is where all the cannon were.
This is where South Battery was located, and it shows it very clearly in a lot of the old historic photos. There was an unbroken line of cannon right along this road facing towards the then embryonic city of San Francisco.
Wait a minute, why would they be facing toward the city of San Francisco? Why wouldn't they be facing out to get any kind of ships that were going to be coming in to do damage?
Well, if you stand right here, you can see that a cannon located here could actually follow a ship all the way into the bay from the time it came through the Golden Gate till the time it went around the corner below Telegraph Hill. This was a great strategic location.
And boy, you see the bird droppings, and that's history too. That's what this island was known for in the early days.
Well, sure, Alcatraz means pelican, and the seabirds were the first inhabitants of the island, if you want to call them that. And even today, it's a major bird breeding colony for western gulls and black-crowned night herons. 8 months of the year, this part of the island is not open to the public to give the birds their time.
So even the bird droppings are historic.
Oh yeah, in fact, one of Alcatraz's earliest nicknames was Bird Island or Guano Island.
Now talk about layers of history. This is a perfect place to see some layers, isn't it?
Right here. You stand right here on this road. This building, this was constructed in 1905 by Army convicts as a barracks for the Army soldiers on the island, and later it was remodeled into apartments for the guards at the penitentiary.
So this was built as an Army barracks?
As an Army barracks.
And this looks very old over here, this old wooden building.
The building with little dormer windows was actually constructed during the 1870s as a library for those early Army prisoners.
So wait a minute, this wooden building was built in the 1870s?
Yes. It was the library, and later on it was even served as a little theater for the convicts.
And what about these buildings down here?
The two concrete Mission Revival buildings, those were built in the 1910s. The near one was served as a school for the Army's soldier prisoners and even children on the island. And the far building was the Post Exchange.
So are any buildings on this island built for the penitentiary that was built here in the 1930s? Or is all this stuff from pre-penitentiary days?
There's only two buildings on the island that are still standing that were built for the penitentiary. The big water tower and a laundry building. Everything else was here. The Army had already built it.
So those layers of history were already here before the prison that everybody comes to see existed.
That's right. Huell, we've been to a lot of neat places today, but I saved the best for last. Over here, this innocuous looking doorway, it was bricked up for years. Well, we opened it up, and I want to show you what we found inside.
I have a feeling this is more underground stuff.
Oh yeah.
We're gonna go. Oh my gosh.
And watch your step.
Oh. Oh. This is a dungeon.
Yeah.
I mean, this feels like a dungeon.
No, this was a powder magazine, and it goes back to about 1856.
A powder magazine?
Powder magazine for storing black powder.
Okay, let's go in.
Why don't you let me go down first? It's a good couple of feet down.
What in the world? Oh my gosh.
Let's walk out to the center.
What? This was a powder magazine?
Hard to believe. It was for storing barrels.
Oh my gosh, look, we're over our shoes. What? It smells like oil down here now.
Yeah, about 1910, somebody decided that if they took this old powder magazine and sealed the walls with concrete, they could turn it into an underground oil storage tank. And that's exactly what they did. They stored what was called bunker oil here that was burned in the powerhouse.
Back in 1910. But this was built in 1855.
1855, 1856. This was technically the powder magazine for North Battery.
So they kept all the powder for all the cannons and all the guns in
That's
here.
Right, in big barrels, and then they load them into silk bags and hand carry them up that staircase and up to the cannons.
Boy, all that's left in here now are memories and about 5 inches of water on our feet.
That's right. And over here, in the world?
What are you looking for?
Well, if I could find it, somebody left a message.
Oh, there's the name. I saw it right there. Right there.
It says 5107, discharged, June 15th, 1912.
This, now how many people even know this is here?
Probably only the staff on the island.
There's still things you're finding here that even the staff don't know about, aren't there?
That's right. Every time we break down a bricked up door or excavate for a trench, we seem to uncover another part of the hidden history.
Well, John, we have been on many an exciting adventure in our day, but I think, honestly, this has been one of the most exciting and interesting days we've ever spent.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm like you, I love history, and I love exploring places I haven't seen before. And it's almost frustrating that so many people come to Alcatraz every year, and what they see is the prison and the cell house, and they learn about Al Capone, and that's important, but there's so much more to learn.
Yeah.
And I don't get a chance to share it with all of them, and I was glad I was able to share it with you and your viewers.
All the layers of history that go back much further than just the prison days that started in the mid-1930s.
The gold rush, lighthouses, the Civil War, the Indian Wars, disciplinary barracks, and finally culminating with the penitentiary and the Indian occupation, and it's all here.
The treacherous waters that separate Alcatraz prison from San Francisco are the scene of a unique test of endurance.
Well, hello everybody, I'm Huell Hauser, and I sure hope you enjoyed this adventure. If you'd like to see it again, or share it with your family or friends, or perhaps donate a copy to your local school or library, it's available on video cassette and on DVD. All you have to do is call 1-800-266-5727, and we'll be glad to send it to you right away.